Hello everybody, welcome back to day 3 of Mr. Davis Reads. And we're continuing with A Boy Called Christmas. If you're sitting comfortably, I'll begin. Now, if you remember yesterday, Nicholas's dad, Joel, had said he was going to leave Aunt Carlotta in charge. Chapter 5, the arrival of Aunt Carlotta. Even at a time when most aunts were nasty and horrible, Aunt Carlotta was particularly bad. She was a tall, grey-cloth, thin woman with white hair and a long, stern face, and a very tiny mouth like a full stop. Everything about her, even her voice, seemed covered in frost. "Now," she said sternly, "it is important to set some rules. The first rule is you must wake up at sunrise." Nicholas gasped. This was horrible. Finland was in summer. But the sun rises in the middle of the night. "The second rule is you do not answer me back, ever, especially about the first rule." Aunt Carlotta looked at Mika, who had just climbed up the table leg and was now scuttling across the table looking for crumbs. She seemed disgusted. "And the third rule," she said, "is no rats." "He's not a rat." But it was too late. She had picked Mika up, the mouse, up by his tail and carried the struggling creature to the door, which she opened before throwing him outside. "Hey, you can't do that," shouted Mika at the top of his voice. But as the top of Mika's voice was nowhere near the bottom of most people's voices, no one heard him. She closed the door, sniffed the air, and her eyes landed on the turnip doll by Nicholas's bed. She picked it up. "And no horrible rotten vegetables either." "It's a doll. Look, it's got a face on it." "Actually, on second thoughts, I'll keep it. It might distract me from the smell of you." Aunt Carlotta considered Nicholas with even more contempt than she had shown the rotten turnip. "I'd forgotten how much I hate children, especially boys. I find them revolting. It's becoming as clear as the air. My ignorant, 9-fingered brother has been too soft with you." She looked around the small one-room cottage. "Do you know why I came?" she asked. "Did he tell you?" "To look after me." Her laugh flapped out of her suddenly and scarily like bats from a cave. It was the first and last time he would ever hear her laugh. "To look after you? Oh, that's good, that's funny. What a world you must live in, to think people just do things for good reason. Do you really think I came here and cared about you? No. I did not come here for a skinny, grubby, childish fool. I came here for the money." "The money?" "Yes. Your father has promised me 500 rubles on his return. That could buy me 5 cottages." "What would you need 5 cottages for?" "To make more money, and then more money." "Is money all that matters?" "Spoken like a true grubby little pauper. Now, where do you sleep?" "There," said Nicholas, pointing first at his bed and then to the other end of the room. "And that's where Papa sleeps." Aunt Carlotta shook her head. "No." "I don't understand," said Nicholas. "I can't have you in here, seeing me in my undergarments. And besides, I have a very bad back. I need both mattresses. You don't want it to get worse, do you?" "No, of course not," said Nicholas. "Good. So you will sleep outside." "Outside?" "Yes, outside. Fresh air is good for the soul. I never understand why children want to be indoors all the time these days. I know it's nearly the 19th century, but still. Go on, shoosh. It's getting dark." So that night Nicholas lay on the grass outside his house. He had taken his mother's old winter coat to sleep under, and lay on the smoothest patch of grass he could find between 2 tree stumps his father had chopped years ago. But there were always pebbles somewhere under his back. The wind blew. He watched Aunt Carlotta in the distance squat over the hole in the ground, hoisting up the petticoat to go to the toilet, and hoped she'd fall in, then hated himself for thinking that. She went back into the warm cottage, and he shivered under a sky full of twinkling stars as he clutched his rotten turnip for comfort. He started to think about the unfairness of the universe and wished there was some way of making it fair again. And as he thought, Mika crept over and joined him, crawling over his arm and resting on his chest. "I feel sorry for Aunt Carlotta," he said. "It can't feel nice to be that miserable, can it?" "I don't know," said Mika. Nicholas gazed up at the night, even though he had nothing much to be happy about. He liked to have such sights to look at. A shooting star fell through the sky. Did you see that, Mika? It means we have to make a wish. So Nicholas wished for a way of replacing meanness with goodness. Do you believe in magic, Mika? I believe in cheese, if that counts, said Mika. There was no way of Nicholas knowing for sure if the mouse did or didn't believe in magic, but comforted by hope, Nicholas and his little rodent friend managed to fall slowly and gently asleep as the cold breeze kept blowing and whispering all the unknown secrets of the night. Chapter 6. Rumbling stomachs and other nightmares. Nicholas slept outside all summer. He spent every day looking for food from first light until nightfall. One day he saw the bear again. The bear stood upright, but Nicholas waited, stayed calm. Be the forest. The bear stood there, peaceful and terrified all at once. The bear that had chased his mother towards the well, but he couldn't hate this creature. Look at me, said Nicholas. I'm skinny as a rake. No meat on my bones. The bear seemed to agree and ambled away on all fours. Was there an unluckier boy in the world? Well, yes, actually there was. There was a boy called Gatu who lived in India who'd been struck by lightning by going to the toilet in a stream. Very nasty. But even so, it was a miserable time for Nicholas. Aunt Carlotta was never happy with the mushrooms and herbs he managed to find. The only real comfort, apart from Mika, was in counting down the days and weeks and months until his father returned, which he did by scratching lines in the nearest pine tree to the cottage. 2 months passed, then 3. Where are you? He'd ask amid the trees. The only sound that came back to him was that of the wind or a distant woodpecker. Aunt Carlotta became nastier with the days, like vinegar getting more sour. She'd scream at him for nothing. Stop that! Shouted Aunt Carlotta one evening as she ate the soup he made for her. Or I'll feed you to a bear! Stop what? Those horrible noises from inside your disgusting body. Nicholas was confused. The only way to stop a rumbling stomach was by eating, and as with most days, he'd only found enough mushrooms for Aunt Carlotta to have soup, and the ones he'd sneaked in his mouth in the forest hadn't been enough. But then Aunt Carlotta smiled. A smile on her face was an unusual thing to see, like a banana in the snow. All right, you can have some soup. Thank you, Aunt Carlotta. I'm so hungry. I love mushroom soup. Aunt Carlotta shook her head. As you always make me soup, I thought I would repay the favour. So while you were out in the forest, I made some soup especially for you. Mika was looking through the window. Don't eat it, he squeaked pointlessly. Nicholas looked worried as he stared down at the murky grey-brown liquid. What is it made with? He asked. Love, said Aunt Carlotta. Nicholas knew he had to be joking. Aunt Carlotta couldn't love any more than an icicle could love. Actually, that's a bit unfair to icicles. Icicles melt. Aunt Carlotta was as frozen as a frozen thing that was very frozen and would never melt. Go on then, eat it. It was the most disgusting thing he'd ever tasted. It was like eating mud and dirt and puddle water. But he could feel Aunt Carlotta watching him, so he kept eating. Aunt Carlotta's cold grey eye made Nicholas feel 100 times smaller than he was, as she said for what seemed like the 100th time, Your father is foolish. Nicholas didn't answer her back. He just kept sipping the foul soup, feeling more and more sick. But Aunt Carlotta wasn't going to leave it there. Everybody knows there's no such thing as elves. Your father's a stupid, ignorant child to believe such things. I'd be very surprised if he is still alive. No one has ever been to the far north and returned to tell the tale. I was so stupid coming here, waiting for 500 rubles that would never arrive. You can always go home. Oh, no, I can't now. It's October. The weather has turned. I can't walk 10 miles in this weather. I'm here for all winter now, for Christmas. Not that Christmas means anything to me. It's a hateful time of year. This was just too much. Christmas is great, Nicholas said. I love Christmas. I don't even care that it clashes with my birthday. He was going to say, the only things that spoil Christmas is you, but he thought better of it. Aunt Carlotta seemed genuinely confused. How can you, a dirty, grubby, motherless boy, love Christmas? If you were a rich merchant son in Turkey or Helsinki, then I can understand it. But my brother's always been too poor to buy you a present. Nicholas felt a red flush of anger tingling his skin. It was always magical, and I'd rather a toy that was made with love than one that cost a lot of money. But the only thing you ever made was that sleigh. He was always too busy working. Nicholas thought of his old turnip doll and wondered where it was. It wasn't beside the door where he'd usually left it. Your father is a liar. No, said Nicholas. He'd finished the soup and now felt extremely ill. He promised you he'd come back. He told you elves are real. 2 lies right there. Anyway, I'm tired now, said his aunt. It's time for bed. Now finish that. Now that you've finished the soup, you can kindly get out of my sight. That would make me as happy as the Queen of Finland. This is my house now. I'm your guardian, so I start doing exactly what I say, exactly as I say it. Get out! Go! Nicholas stood up, his stomach aching. He looked around the room. Where is my turnip doll? Aunt Carlotta smiled. It wasn't a proper smile, and one that was soon turning into a laugh, and then she said it. You've just eaten him! What? It took a second. No, 2 seconds, maybe 3, 3.5. Actually, no, just 3. But then Nicholas realised what she had just said. His only toy in the world was now in his stomach. He ran outside and threw up in the toilet hole. Why did you do that? He asked in disbelief from outside. My mum made me that. Well, she's no longer here, is she? Said Aunt Carlotta through the small window which she'd opened to get a better view of Nicholas being sick. Thank the Lord. Used to give me a headache listening to her bad singing all day. I just thought it was about time you should grow up and leave silly toys behind. Nicholas had finished. He went back inside. He thought of his mother. He thought of her, holding on to the chain that held the bucket as she tried to escape the bear. How dare Aunt Carlotta say nasty things about her? There was only one option now, to run away. He could not stay here with Aunt Carlotta. He would prove his father wasn't a liar, and there was only one way to do it. Goodbye, Aunt Carlotta, he said, just a whisper under his breath, but he meant it. He was going. He was going to find his father. He was going to see the elves. He was going to make everything all right. Chapter 7. A very short chapter with a long title in which not very much happens. Aunt Carlotta mumbled something and didn't look back at him as she climbed into her bed with 2 mattresses. Nicholas took some of the stale bread lying on the table, stuffed it in his pocket and went outside into the cold night. He was tired. His stomach still ached and his tongue tasted of rotten turnip, but he was also something else. Determined. Yes, he was going to start the walk to the far north. Mika was nibbling on a dry leaf. The mouse, he supposed, was the closest thing he had to a friend. I'm going to the far north, Mika. It'll be a very long and dangerous journey. There's a very high chance of death. I think you should stay here. It'll be warmer, but if you want to come with me, give me a signal. Mika looked anxiously at the door to the cottage. You don't have to stay right here, Nicholas told him. You have the whole forest. Mika glanced at the whole forest. But there's no cheese in the forest. Nicholas could still not speak mouse, but got the general gist. So you want to come with me? Mika perched on his hind legs, and though Nicholas couldn't be entirely sure, it seemed that the mouse nodded his little head. So he picked him up and put him in his left-hand coat pocket. Then, with Mika peeking out at the road ahead, Nicholas turned and headed north through the trees, towards the place he thought he might find his father and the elves, and tried his hardest to believe in both. And that's all for today. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye all.